Welcome back to Zeitgeist. This is Stephen. Today in the studio with us is Oliver, and he's going to talk about a subject that can be very difficult and heavy to himself and to others. Okay, Oliver, you are the eldest son in the family, right?
Yeah, eldest of three.
Okay.
There's two younger brothers, so I'm 12 years older than.
Okay. And they are twins, but not identical twins.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
not identical.
Okay. And I know that they both suffer disabilities, or one of them suffered disabilities.
Well, they both have disabilities, but Sam was born with Down syndrome and autism. Okay. It wasn't until he was maybe 5 or 6 that we realised he was autistic. Down syndrome had slowed his development in other areas, so it was kind of difficult for us to tell that these autistic characteristics were actually there as well.
Okay. The fact that one of your kid brothers was born with this compound disability, how did it affect you, yeah, as the elder brother who's like 12 years older, right? Yeah.
Well, I don't think I was drastically affected by it at the time. I think I kind of took it in my stride. But as I got older and saw how life was difficult for him, and kind of came to terms with the fact that life would always be difficult for him, you know, it was a gradual realization, an awakening, really. Yeah.
It will be a lifelong process, right?
Absolutely.
And it won't get better. As time goes on, it won't get better, right?
His condition won't get better, but the way that we're able to manage him and our relationship with him can always be good and improved.
Okay. The other kid brother, Ewan.
Yeah.
How did he, as a kid of the same age with Sam, how did he cope with this brother? You know, over time, how did he cope with it?
Well, they were just usual brothers to start with. You know, Ewan would always be annoyed because Sam wanted his toys, but as they got older, I think Ewan took on more of a big brother role in the relationship. And when he got to the age of maybe 10, 11, he wanted to know, rightly so, a little bit about Sam's conditions, and he went away and did some research of his own accord, and he wanted to learn how to have a better relationship with his brother. You know, as did we all.
And that he was still a preteen at that time, right?
Yeah, he was a young guy. He was always very, and he is a very kind of logical, scientifically minded person.
Okay.
He went on to study physics at university.
Okay. You mean by the time he was 12, he was making plans for himself to become a scientist later on, right?
I think the foundations were there. Science and maths were things that he was interested in. Okay. But that approach, that kind of logical approach to trying to find out more and dealing with things through information, you know, and having that information at your disposal, that was something that he recognized and made use of as a young person.
Okay, that means that he was trying to get a better grasp of the situation, a control of the situation by understanding more, right?
Right.
And especially through science, right?
Right.
Through information, science, knowledge.
Right.
Okay. And did that experience make him precocious, like, you know, become more mature than his peers of his own age?
In many ways, it probably did. I think it definitely affected his determination in the rest of his life. Yes. As it did all of us. Our whole family learned and grew from being thrown into this position of adversity and challenge.
Okay, you talk about Ewan making plans to become a scientist. Do you know if he had plans to take care of his twin brother for the rest of his life, or is he preparing himself for a lifelong challenge of becoming a caretaker to his brother?
Well, we all are, and it's a practicality that we have to consider. My mum worries about it. She's been talking to us now for some time, and you know, slowly we've come around to the idea of talking about Sam's future. Ewan's happy to talk about it, and he's certainly not shying away from the idea of one day he'll possibly be a caretaker, and so will I. Mm-hmm. And these responsibilities that we're happy to accept, because he's our brother, and we want the best for him.
Okay. Now, let's talk a bit about your mother. Okay. Usually, the parent-child relationship is like that. The child grows up and becomes caretaker, okay, until the parents pass away, okay. But in your case, or in the case of the family, it's the other way around, right?
It's the other way
so
around.
How does this reverse situation affect your mom?
Well, it's kind of an unnatural situation. I mean, a mother and a father expect, first of all, to outlive their child, and that's never a given with a child with Down syndrome. Their lives can be shortened by congenital problems that exist within people with Down syndrome. Holes in the heart are frequent. Earlier, shorter lifespans, which are becoming, you know, extended as medical science goes forward.
You talk about holes in the heart, right?
Yeah.
Was Sam born with this
particular
heart condition?
He had two.
Describe it to how serious was it?
It was very serious. When he was born, we recognised on the day he was born that he had Down syndrome. We didn't know before he was born. It wasn't identified. However, when he was born and we realised he had Downs, and then we learnt lots about it, and then we found out all of the possible medical problems that he could have, and then we found out very quickly that he did have some of these common problems, holes in the heart being one of them. He had open heart surgery at 18 months.
Still a baby, right?
Yeah, at Bristol Hospital for Children.
That was a major surgery, right?
Major surgery. Yeah. It was before the days, before the days of keyhole surgery, where these things could be done not so intrusively. So, as an 18-month-old infant, his chest was completely open. Quite a risky operation at the time, especially with somebody whose immune system. This is another problem that people with Downs have. Their immune system is often not able to cope with much at the same time. So, yeah, there was risks of him developing infections after, and yeah, so it was major surgery. So it was a traumatic experience for the whole family. I was 14 in school, and it affected my life at the time. I remember it vividly.
Okay, a bit about. At that time, you were still in Britain, right?
Right.
Tell us about how the British healthcare system helped you cope with this challenge. Okay.
Right. Well, I was born in Lincoln in the East Midlands, and we moved to Cornwall when I was around 11. Cornwall has been the recipient of a lot of EU funding for a number of reasons. So over many years, Cornwall's systems, education, healthcare, I think have become pretty good, and the facilities available for Sam as he became older and started doing different and new things, we found were very good. His options were good. The cost for the family was low. There was so much he could do.
Well funded, right?
Well funded. So we probably didn't realise actually how well off we were in terms of care and support in that part of the country until recently. Sam turned 18 and we moved, well, my family did, back to their original home, my place of birth, Lincoln in the East Midlands. And we found that because of the differences in the systems, Sam wasn't a part of that system. They're compartmentalised around the country, these areas. So it wasn't just a case of Sam's medical records being brought across. He had to be reassessed for everything. Everything was brought into question, his need for one-to-one care at school, these things all needed to be reassessed, and much of the time my parents were being told that he actually doesn't need these things, you know. Maybe he could go into a mainstream school. And my mum was a little bit horrified at the idea of this, not just from a point of view of being a mother, but also from a point of view of being a lifelong carer for Sam and actually really understanding his needs and being used to the medical profession also having a profound understanding for what Sam really needed. So he was thrown into an environment where she didn't feel like people understood him and what he needed. And this played out in a number of scenarios. Him being 18 and certain legislation and laws applying to him now regarding being kept in locked facilities, which he was always kept in a school with a locked door. It was taken for granted that he couldn't escape, because that's something that he always liked to do.
Oh, it's
you know,
escape artist.
If he saw an open gate, an open door, you really had to watch him, because he'd just go exploring to him, you know.
And then once he passed that gate, he'll be lost forever.
There was more than one occasion where he was lost. I mean, he wandered. He was at a care facility, a respite care facility, when we were in Cornwall. There was a problem with the lock on the door. It was a security lock. They made an excuse, said a child must have overseen an adult putting in the code, and somehow Sam escaped. He was found 2 miles away in the local town, trying to visit a cinema to see a film. He was recognised by somebody, and they sat him down and called the police. Because
luckily, isn't it?
He has no road awareness. Is one of the problems. He'll walk out into traffic, so he needs to be cared. So these were one of the problems that they faced in Lincoln, being, you know, subjected to all this reassessment. Plus, Sam can no longer. So they didn't feel safe and secure. So it was a big change. It was a big change.
Hearing the story from you, and I try to compare what we in Hong Kong can offer, like families with kids who suffer similar disabilities. I think Britain is already doing quite a good job already, isn't it?
I believe so. I believe that the approach that Britain uses is one of care and support. It may not get it right every time, but it's probably comparatively better funded. These health issues are probably better understood, and most importantly, the stigma of having these conditions no longer really exists in society. And I don't know enough about Hong Kong yet, having only been here a year. But I feel that discrimination is probably higher here against people with disabilities, just because of a lack of understanding. So I think there could be certainly more done to promote a greater level of understanding among society and parents.
Okay, coming around to yourself, how does this particular experience of having a kid brother who have suffered compound disabilities, how does it affect you in terms of temperament, in terms of your plans for your future, and overall as a person, how does it affect you?
Well, I'm not sure about my temperament. My plans, well, everything has been affected by Sam and Ewan in terms of our mindsets in our family. I don't really know about my temperament. My wife says I'm good.
But your outlook of life is
sure. I think I have an understanding of and an empathy for other people, and I'm told I have.
Does it really?
And I think it comes from trying to understand the needs of somebody who is quite a mystery to somebody who would meet Sam for the first time. He would present quite an enigma to them in his behaviour and the things he does and says. So yeah, I've spent a lot of my time trying to understand him, and I think that has been an ongoing thing with everybody. I try to understand people.
Okay.
Try to be patient.
So
Doesn't
that means
always
that
work.
it actually help cultivate or enhance your ability to empathize, right?
Maybe.
To put yourself in someone's shoes. Okay?
Well, sure. I've had a bit of practice at it, so I'm sure it's helped.
Okay. Now, before we leave, I'll ask you to give me a take on this film, The Rain Man, which is about someone
Right.
who suffered from the autistic
Sure.
problem. Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of Dustin Hoffman anyway, but so perhaps I'm biased. But I think that the portrayal of autism is not very characteristic of the disorder in many ways. I think that film disseminated a kind of myth that people with autism have a special power of
Like,
some kind,
throwing a
like
box
a
of
superpower.
matches on the
Sure.
on the floor,
And-
then you can say,
Okay,
"Wow, 138 matches!"
138. You know, whereas it's often not the case. I think autism is better characterized as a difficulty in understanding abstract concepts, forming personal relationships, understanding what's happening in another person's head, I think, is often something that's characterized. And I think the film did characterize those things, perhaps, but obviously films need entertaining and
Do you think
different
Tom
aspects.
Cruise, the actor who played the brother part, okay?
Yeah. What
Do
about
you
him?
think he actually honestly depict the difficulties of having a brother and having to cope with, or
Sure,
live
I
on the same roof?
Absolutely. I mean, he didn't understand his brother, right?
Yeah.
He,
To the very end, he doesn't understand. He
was in
couldn't have
denial.
problem getting into his head.
he was in denial. Right?
Yeah.
And so he didn't understand the condition. So once he spent a bit more time and understood the condition a little more, I think that gave him some insights. And I think that's something that a lot of people may lack, is an understanding of the condition. You can't just, even though you might want to, if you're frustrated with your family member who has this problem at times, shake them and just say, come on, understand, you can't do that. The burden is upon you, and it's incumbent upon you to understand the way that person views the world. In my opinion, you have to make that concession.
And this condition is going to become a fixture. It's not going to go away. It's not going to improve, right?
Absolutely.
It's up to the other family members to accommodate, to cope with, to come to terms with
Sure.
this condition, which will be.
They'll be them, and the learning needs to be done by everybody else. So you just need to, as a family, pull together, get on board, and learn how to give that person a good standard of life, and yourselves. Make sure that you ultimately don't suffer because of an inability to deal with this situation.
Wow, Oliver, your story is, I think, a story that deserves to be heard by a lot more people.
This would be my mum's story more than mine. I left home at 18 and haven't lived at home permanently ever since. So my mum's the one who's really had to deal with
Okay,
this.
let's hope that next
And
time I can invite your mom here and
stepfather.
let her tell her story, okay?
Yeah,
okay.
for sure.
Thank you so much for your time, Oliver.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yep. So much for this time. Thanks for tuning in. Next time we'll bring you other great stories. Bye-bye for now.